車に乗る前にはしっかり点検整備をしましょう。自転
Hello everyone, Brandon here. It's been quite a while since I did one of these painting and story time videos, eh? I've missed doing these and I've missed you all too. As many of you may or may not know, for 6 months in 2024, I was an assistant language teacher in Japan, more specifically in Hokkaido, Japan. But Brandon, you were freaking 27 years old. What the heck are you doing teaching English in Japan? Shouldn't you be holding down a corporate job in your home state of Texas? Well, the reason why was because living in Texas and doing a corporate job in the specific company I had been working in for 5 whole years was becoming very detrimental to my health. I was becoming very unhappy all the time. I did have to go to therapy, and I even had thoughts of doing very terrible things to myself because I felt so extremely trapped. Why Japan? Why not another state if you wanted to just leave Texas? Well, I tried. Little did I know that getting an out-of-state job was hard. Even in 2022 to 2023, it was very hard, especially if you don't have any connections in those out-of-state companies. I literally spent over a year doing almost non-stop interviews. I had mentors, had people review my resumes and interview responses, and I got nothing but rejection emails. First interviews were fine. Second interviews, I'm out. After a year of living a very stressful, detrimental lifestyle of this, I said, F it. I don't care what it is or where. I had to get out of this before I do something really bad to myself. So I decided the quote-unquote easy jobs to get that are international are English teaching jobs, and Japan accepts many English teachers, and I freaking love Japan. The culture, the history, and the anime, I loved it all. So I applied to a few companies that accepted English teachers. No, I didn't apply to the JET program. I really should have. I heard they were competitive, but I was so tired of getting rejections that I didn't want to risk it. But apparently it's not that hard to get into, according to my friends who I worked with in Japan. In the spring of 2023, the third company I applied to accepted me. When I got the email, I literally froze. I felt like my problems were disappearing and melting away. Not only that, I got the offer to work in the north of Japan, which is known to be extremely beautiful. I literally replied yes within the first 5 minutes of reading the email. The only downside was that I had to wait until their next cycle of onboarding, which wouldn't take place until the preceding year of March 2024. I hung on to my corporate job until then, lived my regular life in Texas, then quit a few months before, met up with my friends as much as possible before I left, and boom, I was in Japan. When I first landed in Japan, I was honestly very nervous and scared. I actually had never had a long-term stay in Japan before then. Very few people spoke English. Everything was done very differently. I still remember getting on the train with my 3 big luggage bags, and as it took me down to Susukino Station in Sapporo, and I was thinking, wow, I can't believe I'm actually all alone in the winter of northern Japan, which is right next to Russia, by the way. I just pray I don't get lost, I can get to my hotel, and I'll be okay. I did get lost quite a few times. I was very tired because I had been traveling for over 20 hours on a plane. I barely spoke any Japanese. Yet somehow, I miraculously made it. I do give credit to a very kind stranger who saw me struggling with my 3 luggages. Like, do you know how hard it is to roll 50-pound luggages over a foot of snow? He very graciously helped me roll one of my luggages to the hotel with me and insisted on bringing it all the way to the front desk, even though I told him it's okay multiple times. When he finished, I gave him a big arigato gozaimasu, a bow, and wished him on his way. And if this video somehow manages to find you, I still remember the very kind thing you did for me, and thank you so much. Arigato gozaimasu. I had 5 days to myself in Sapporo, and in fact, That video of my experience is on my other channel. I'll link it right above here. Then came a week of training. After training was done, I was whisked away to the city where I would teach and into my new apartment. Now my video may be making the process seem easy. I'll be transparent. If the company I was with didn't provide us with an agent who could translate and guide us through registering with the city, getting my apartment keys, and getting my bank account set, I would have never made it. It's a very long and draining process, but when you finish, it feels like you climbed Mount Everest. I won't lie, the apartment I lived in was definitely a bit of a culture shock. Yes, it was only about $250 a month, but the toilet was like in a closet towards the front door. There were no dryers automatically installed. You had to air dry your clothes. The sink where I cleaned dishes in was the same sink where I brushed my teeth in, and the heaters still required propane or gasoline. I can't remember what it's called. This was Japanese life, and I knew it would be tough, but I needed to get used to it. Then came my teaching job. For context, I was the assistant teacher for preschool, elementary, and junior high school. I was assisting the main language teachers of the schools I would be working with. For example, they would develop and tell me the lesson plan. They would just ask me to read a passage or repeat a word or do an activity with the students, and I just followed their instructions. I didn't really plan the lesson or had much say in the curriculum or do much unless the teacher called on me to do it. However, the main part of the job was to interact and talk with the kids. Normally, I have no issues talking with kids or playing with them. I actually used to work in a preschool when I was in college. However, it's so different when the kids don't speak any English. I did have a few students who spoke very good English though. Mostly, I tried to play games or use the little Japanese I knew to talk with them. Oh, Nistiru, je parle français aussi et alors je leur parlais en français quelquefois et c'était un choc pour mes étudiants. They loved it, I promise. I swear, the kiddos were the highlight of the job. They are the bipolar opposite of what you would expect from American school kids. Kids as young as 5 years old would walk by themselves to school. The bigger kids would guide them and lead the younger kids without anyone telling them. And they would have what they called soji or cleaning times, and they did such a diligent job. They were so sweet and absolutely wonderful. I miss working with them so much.
Here's a really embarrassing story that happened to me on the job. In Japanese schools and Japan in general, shoe culture is very important. You would need to take off your shoes, put your outdoor shoes into a cubby close to the entrance of the school, and then wear your indoor shoes whilst you were in the school. Well, the vice principal, who we called Kyoto Sensei, had a pair of shoes that were not the exact same style, but very similar to mine. They were a pair of black shoes just like mine, and we put them right next to each other in the cubbies. Not only that, his shoe size was the same as mine. So at the end of the day, I accidentally took his shoes instead of mine. He told me the next morning, and when I say I was internally screaming in my head, that would be an understatement. I kept saying "gomenasai." I switched it, and everyone else was like "gutsu." I mean, it was fine in the end, but yeah, that will stick with me forever.
We even had what we called an Inaka festival, which means a countryside festival, where the kids and teachers would perform a very traditional countryside dance in the middle of town and march as well. I came to the festival just to support and cheer them on, but they insisted that Brandon Sensei join them. I said, no wait, I didn't practice and I don't know the dance. And they were like, it's okay, just follow us. Well guys, if I screwed anything up in that dance, I warned you. It was amazing though. It was such a fond memory and I'm glad I did it, honestly. So Brandon, why did you leave then if the kids weren't the issue? Well, if you meet a couple more English language teachers, quite a few of them will tell you that it really isn't the kids or the other staff who are the problem. Because hey, the staff of the schools I taught at honestly, they really enjoyed me as much as I enjoyed them. They always tried to get to know me and talk to me. Some of them still follow me on Instagram to this day. In fact, one of them actually hung out at the mall with me. what other English language teachers will tell you, the main bump in their road to their dreams coming true are the main teachers they teach along. Where was my bump? Preschool teachers? I actually never got to work with them. The main board of education never scheduled me to work with the preschoolers for some reason. I was down to do it though. I heard it was fun. The junior high school teachers? No. They were absolutely wonderful. They were extremely sweet with me, kind, and I genuinely enjoyed working with them with all my heart. There were 4 of them overall. 2 of them were fluent in English. The other 2, I would say they were level B1 to B2 English, but they were aware of it, owned up to it, and used me as a resource very effectively in the classroom. I loved them so much and I had 0 problems with them. The main thorn at my side, the reason I ended up having to quit and leave my dreams, was the elementary school teacher.
I do apologize, but I will have to continue the story in a part 2 because if I told you all about this elementary school teacher in this same video, the story will be way too long. So before I head off, I did want to address a few points about living in Japan. Okay, this first point may be a bit of an elephant in the room, and disclaimer, this is just my personal experience, but I honestly didn't experience really any xenophobia at all. It may be because I am of Singaporean Chinese descent, so I actually fit in with the crowd in Japan. People would actually be surprised whenever I picked up an English pamphlet or started speaking English fluently. However, they always seemed so welcoming to me. They wanted me to sit with them in their groups, and they were so eager to practice their English with me. For a short period of time, I attended a church in the downtown city I lived in. When you entered the church, there were people who greeted you and asked you to sign your name. Because I wrote my name in katakana, they immediately asked me where I'm from, and I just told them I'm from the United States and I was teaching English. Later, towards the end of the service, they were doing announcements, and lo and behold, they announced that they had an American visiting them who was living in Japan teaching English named Brandon. At first, I panicked because I did not want people knowing I was an outsider, but instead I was met with smiles, people welcoming me to Japan, and practicing their English with me. Really, there was nothing for me to worry about. Another elephant in the room many potential English teachers may have is the pay. Okay, it really depends on the program and the company you are with. A majority of them, unfortunately, don't offer a very healthy salary. I personally lived paycheck to paycheck during my time in Japan. Like, thank goodness I didn't have any debt to pay off because I absolutely do not recommend using the English teaching job to pay off debt. Please don't, it will not be enough. I only had a take-home pay of around 200,000 yen. A big chunk went to my rental car payments, rent itself, paying off the propane or gasoline for the water heaters, which was like 20,000 yen a month, phone payments, Wi-Fi. So I literally had to record every single time I spent money. To save on money, I actually requested to bring my own lunch instead of eating school lunches or kyoshuku. Then I did relocate to a teacher's house that was subsidized and only costed like 8,000 yen a month. After I did that, I did have a better budget for fun. Like, I could still eat out, go to onsens, and go on outings with friends, but I still had to be very careful though. There was actually a time where I got sick and I had to go into work anyways. What happened was I unfortunately got a respiratory infection and I had to call off from work the prior day. And because I hadn't been with my company long enough at the time, that day I called off was unpaid. I did not want to go to school because I didn't want to get anyone, especially the teachers and students, sick, but because I needed to pay bills, I had to go in anyways. I just had to wear a mask. Overall, I hope this helps give you an insight to my experience teaching English in Japan, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and the story will continue in part 2. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and may all your sweet dreams come true. you.